This is Barclay Brown, the host of the Hart Studio Show. So this is the Hart Studio Show where we interview artists and learn interesting things. This is a production of the Hart Initiative, which is focused on bringing the healing power of art to communities. We talk about the business of art, the art of business, and that sort of thing. So with me today is the president of the Hart Initiative, Honor Allison Lind. So say hi, Honor.
Hi, thanks for being here today. The Hart Initiative has also taken on a new program called the TEMP program, There Is No Trash, where we celebrate artists in the community that really take art out of the box and create, upcycle, recycle, remake, rethink, retask, redistribute, and take discarded goods and make them into sellable art, which is one of the reasons why we're talking to Camille today. And if I can also shout out to Camille. She is doing not only incredible things in the community with upcycle and recycled art, but she does a lot with gardening and seeds and fabric. And that's why we invited her on the show today, because she's really doing a lot of different forms of art, but more importantly, she's engaging the community and really bringing the community together with art programs that really engage sustainability and bring corporate sponsors and educational outreach programs to have a more, what I call well-rounded community with the power of art. Thank you so much for being here today.
All right, terrific. Well, with that, welcome, Camille. So say hello.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Good. So that's welcome, Camille. And what's the dog's name, since he's part of this interview?
I did not even know this. I've been here for about a month, and this dog I didn't even know was next door, but it must have caught when there was an interview. So this dog
so it wants to be part of the interview. So we don't even know the dog's name. So how are we going to get him to sign a release? I mean, come on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now he's a mascot.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, as Inspector Clouseau heard, that's not my dog. Yes. Well, anyway, you had to remember that one. All right. So let's just jump right in, Camille. We got a lot of great things to talk about. So here's one place I want to start, right? So COVID has affected all of us, right, in various ways and so on. And you're someone who used to do, if I understand right, a lot of in-person art programs, you know, with kids or with adults or in different kinds of settings. And you, I think, had to sort of pivot, right, based on COVID to going virtual. So what was that like? Or what did you learn? Or was that smooth? Or how did that go?
Well, actually, it was a smooth transition, because the program that we work with, the Frank Callan's Boys and Girls Club, at the time.
Whoops.
Oh, sorry. That's the time, they had created virtual volunteers, because they were also turning themselves into a learning center, so that they were able to have the volunteers continue to do their work virtually while they had the staff trained to deal with the kids during COVID, to maintain their school day and then transition into after school. So they were ready to have virtual learning opportunities and virtual after school programs. And so I had been working with them for about 3 or 4 years. And when I said, well, we can, accommodate the virtual needs that you guys have for virtual volunteers, she was like, and this is Miss Hamilton, the director of the Frank Callan's Boys and Girls Club. She was like, this is great, because we're ready for this. They've got computer labs, they've got large screens in their art room, they've got a large projector, so that they were able to utilize our YouTube pre-recorded videos. Normally we would be there demoing in front of the kids, but the kids could watch the demo at their own pace. It also helped them for social distancing, so that more kids could participate in the program, because the art room is only so big. And I think they could probably only have about 6 to 8 kids at a time, but there's like 35 kids that wanted to participate. So it allowed them to kind of get into the flow of how it was going, prepare them for getting back into the classroom, and then get a kind of glance at what after school was going to look like if they couldn't have volunteers, because they're not paid staff, which means they're not eligible for the vaccines and all of that other stuff, still participate, because that's an essential part of their program. So it went really well.
So it sounds like they were kind of ready for it even before COVID. So I guess just as a follow-up, do you see some of this as a permanent change? In other words, will they continue to use virtual or virtual and real together, even after everybody's got their shots and COVID's a memory, what will it be
Yes.
on it later?
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is yes, because they do like a virtual talent show, which allows them to connect to other boys and girls clubs. So the social aspect of it is that you might not be able to connect with the Boys and Girls Club in Atlanta or in another city in Georgia, or even another Boys and Girls Club in another state, but this opportunity allows them to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's, I'm in the technology industry, and we're experiencing a lot of the same things, right? That people were kind of kicking and screaming, having to go work from home because everybody was afraid it wasn't going to be productive and everything. And now people are finding it so productive and useful that a lot of the change is going to be permanent. And some corporations are even talking about reducing their office space because they're not going to need it as much because more people will be working from home. So it's the permanent effects are something we're going to discover, as we go along. Let's see. Well, let me go to this. So plastic bags, what a wonderful, exciting subject, right? These disposable grocery store plastic bags. And, we all have this vague notion, I think, that they're a huge environmental problem, and we hear about them poisoning wildlife and, some, is it the turtles that can't tell the difference between floating plastic bags and jellyfish, which they normally eat. So they're eating the plastic bags and, all kinds of problems like this. So you've got kind of a unique way of helping to deal with this. And it seems to be a way to help solve the problem, but also help the homeless, but also it's art. So kind of all together. So tell us how that all works.
So this was a transition project that Carol Greenberg came up with as we were transitioning from Morningstar Cultural Arts to Morningstar Arts Creative. She had been in charge of the organization. She founded it and started it back in 1988. And so as a kind of handoff project, because she knew I was into the creative art and the creative process. And her sister in Miami had been doing this project with kids at her school, came up with an idea to utilize utilize plastic bags to make these plastic mats, in which they would give them out to the mission in Savannah. So that's kind of how the project came about. Carol Greenberg started it and facilitated it in Savannah. And we have a few organizations that are working with us. And there's a Plarn Matters group that meets up every Thursday, and everyone takes their bags instead of just throwing them out, cuts them up. We make pillows, mats for the kids. I've made little dolls. They can make all kind of things. You can make all kind of things out of plastic bags that you wouldn't even think of.
Well, I certainly wouldn't think about it. And I was kind of, from a technology perspective, I'm interested in how you actually do this, right? Because I saw something about how you can create mats on a loom. So I'm thinking, all right, are you turning the plastic bags into like literally some kind of yarn and then weaving it? Or how does the process work from a
so it's a
creative process?
Yeah, it's a two-part process. You could do it by hand, you could do it by crochet needle, or you could do it by loom. Julie Gilhart, one of the volunteers, she actually created a loom, but most of the volunteers were using a crochet hook, so they were crocheted mats.
Oh, all right.
But the idea, the creative process part of it is that rather it being a cultural driven technique, it is more whatever kind of creative process you come about as in creating the mats. Everybody is a little bit different. Some people have more skill in hand weaving. Some people are better on the loom, and some people are excellent with crochet. So it gives everyone opportunity to take their skill that they're best knowledgeable of, or something that they want to learn, and apply it. So you can do them a variety of ways.
That's great. I mean, Honor, you've done a lot of work with, upcycle and recycle materials, and this is right up your alley, right? I mean, being able to take something that normally would be discarded and turn it into not only art, but actually a functional art in some way.
Well, Camille, yes, I do a lot of that as well, to retask, remake, rethink discarded goods, and like a broken picture frame we can make tables out of, for example, or you know, clothing that may be discarded, you can retask it and remake it into other. I saw that Camille had done this too with some jeans. She reconstructed it and made it into a purse just recently. But Camille, I'd like to hear a lot more about your seed program and your recycling program. And you have an event coming up this week on the 14th as well. But I love so much of what you're doing, and I do want to have different series focused on all the different projects that you're doing. But I really liked your seeds, where you're doing seed sharing basically across the nation, because I think you did not only Georgia, but you took it to California. And so I'd like for you to talk about that, but I'd also love for you to talk about your recycling events and some of those programs that you're doing that are coming up this week.
Okay. Well, so we do an Earth Day. Well, we have an Earth Week, and our recycling project is plant material. So a lot of people work in the realm of found objects, like they do the dumpster diving, and they'll
That's what I do.
Yeah, a lot of people really like to do that. We do that in the garden. So we utilize every leaf, every flower petal, every seed, even the insects in the garden, and we come up with our projects. So we do composting. We have a partner, Fresh Market in Savannah and Atlanta, and we contribute to their flower. You know, we take their flower waste. A lot of people don't know that in grocery stores, just like the food, they throw it out in the dumpster at the end of the day if they can't sell it. It's not a resellable item. Flowers are the same way. So a few years ago, we started with Fresh Market, where we would receive their flower waste, which actually, you know, was just flowers that expired, which most people don't even think of it in that way. And so what we did was we dried the flower petals, and we created art with them. And one of our first art projects was at Oatland Island Wildlife Center, when we were working with the silkworms. Is they created an exhibit, and what they did was use the crushed dried flower petals as the wings for the moths, for the Bombay Mori moths. Yeah. So we do all kind of things with plant material. This most recent year, this last year, for our fall harvest activity, we worked with Savannah African Art Museum, and we made plant material masks. So they took the rose petals and they actually made masks. Savannah Honor Academy, they participated also, and they gathered their own. Sorry about that. They gathered their own materials. So, you know, they went into their school garden and picked from their school garden and created these masks. And so we do a lot of different things as it pertains to plant materials. So, and that's kind of our recycle. And that's how we get out into the garden. Also, we talk about materials that come from plants like linen, cotton. You know, the kids learn that linen comes from flax, and that there's cotton seeds, and that, you know, burlap comes from a bast fiber. We do bast fibers. So we do kind of a little bit of everything.
Great. Okay. I'm kind of intrigued. So go ahead. But I did have a question about the flower petals and the leaves and so forth. I mean, maybe this is a dumb newbie question, right? But how come those things don't just fall apart? I mean, how do you keep them substantial enough to make lasting art out of it?
Well, so we learn preservation techniques. A lot of conservancy programs, whether it's clothes, whether it's art, there's preservation materials. This is like a DIY kind of fun thing to know, but we use Mod Podge. And most people don't know that if you put Mod Podge on a live flower, it preserves it as it is. It just looks like a plastic flower.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Yeah.
I use Mod Podge a lot. Actually, I did something similar just to share. In the fall, I really love the different colors of the falling leaves. And Barkley witnessed me doing it in a storytelling technique that I did. And I actually did use Mod Podge, and I was shocked on how well it used. It was just by accident because I didn't have anything else. And but I used the leaves to preserve handwriting on the leaves. And then I took found objects, like I found an old key, and I put it on the leaf. But anyway, I preserved it through Mod Podge, and I was shocked that it actually worked, and it preserved the color. So I did it more as an experiment, but I'm glad to hear you say that's what you use, because some people talk about resin and epoxy, and it's expensive, it's harsh, it's chemicals, and but I have worked with resin and epoxy before. So I'm glad that. Thank you for sharing that, and I love that you're teaching them materials in the garden, and then that must be why you call it seed to fabric. And
it's seed to fiber.
That's it. Yeah. Seed to fiber. I was close. And then and I love that you're really incorporating the whole STEAM, science, technology, education, arts, mathematics, because it sounds like you're doing fun programs that really tantalize and expose youth into all the processes of art and culture in a way, from environment.
Right. Yeah, and then also you'd be surprised that if you ask kids, like, oh, well, where do your T-shirts come from? Oh, the store. They don't think in a deeper level of, oh yeah, you know what? That's actually a plant, or what I'm wearing. They're not so much material process oriented, which also helps them academically once they start to understand that things aren't always just put in front of them, and they touch, feel, taste that way. As far as experiments, they have in the garden, using it from a garden perspective, they have more insight as into the five senses, their motor skills, fine motor skills, all kind of things.
That's great. Well, my question is, does Mod Podge work on barking dogs? I mean, that,
I know.
I think that's a possibility. We should experiment with that.
No
and you mentioned insects. Honor has a lovely collection of dead insects that she's been accumulating. But seriously, what do you? And that is serious. She actually does. But what do you do with insects in your art? You mentioned it. Kind of. What's that about?
So we do every few years, we use silkworms, the Bombay Mori moth. We will hatch them at Oatland Island. Well, actually, we were the first ones to hatch them a couple years ago. And I happened to come across this process at a fiber festival that they used to have in Georgia, which they don't have anymore. And in the fiber festival, we were given these Bombay Mori moths eggs. We hatched them, and then what the process is, you make silk hankies. And one of the more advanced processes is nuno-felting, because you nuno-felt with fiber and you nuno-felt with silk. So it was kind of just walking through the whole idea of how silk actually comes from an insect. It doesn't come from an animal or the plant. It comes from an insect. But because these insects are domesticated, we need to feed them mulberry leaves. Specifically, that's what they eat, and they only eat or they won't survive. Then that connected it to the garden, because we had a mulberry tree in the garden.
Oh, nice.
So, yes, so they were able to put all of that together. And then in addition, this year we're doing Before Honey, which is a look at the beetle. And the cochineal beetle is a red dye. A red dye comes from the cochineal bug. So we're able to expand it a little bit more than just anything that can be recycled. Insects pretty much stand on their own. I don't know what we would name that process, but it's not, like your typical recycling. We're not like, I don't know what you would say it is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And those insects, they keep making more. The supply is not dwindling for the most part.
But
Yes.
what I love most what you're doing is it's kind of like how the ancients did it. When I was
Yeah.
a metalsmith artist, what I loved about learning the art of metalsmith, it wasn't just the jewelry making or the signage or the small reliquary boxes. It was because we were learning how the Romans and the Greeks made their cloak pins, or
Right.
how they made fasteners, and we hand forged everything. And
Yeah,
so
pretty exactly, because that's what it was. It's hand foraging, dumpster diving, all of those things. That is a process that it's not necessarily maybe cultural, but it's something that is, you know, detrimental. I'd say it's a survival skill almost.
me too. I agree.
Yeah.
And you're teaching them where ink comes from, like the beetles, the red.
Right.
The clothes that you wear have to be loomed and processed, and so you're teaching them the basics. And I think those lost art skills are becoming lost, and it is up to us to preserve how that's done, right? And
Right.
you're definitely doing that. I would love to. And I know you have the classes that you're video recording and for participants, but we would love to help you behind the scenes when you feel appropriate. You know, we can actually send people to video record, or you can record and send to us, and we can help get the word out. But I think it's important that people know the depth of what you're teaching. It is art, but it's a deeper level of art. And that's what I think is the value.
Right.
Well, let me ask a little more about that deeper level. In fact, that's right where I was wanting to go. So at one level, it's interesting, right, that you can take, you know, discarded or otherwise not used materials and make something out of it. Okay, so that's nice. And then there's this kind of historical context, right, of saying, okay, this is the way the ancients did it, and that's interesting, right? And then there's this layer of, well, we really start to see into how things are put together. But is there more to it than that? Like in other words, why do this? Yes, it's interesting on a sort of a curiosity level, but we have supply chains. Our societies have built up huge, you know, mechanisms to have hobby lobbies full of materials. And what does this bring, you know, to a world like that somehow?
The quality of material, what you're finding, just like with plastics now, how people are trying to remove plastics from the environment, natural fibers and papers, they're more preservable, they're less damaging to our environment. And so the idea is that we've become so manufacturer driven, so industrialized, that we've kind of damaged not the process or the technique or the cultural tradition of it. We've damaged the quality of how things are made. So, for example, if you buy a pair of jeans, you know, you bought a pair of jeans back in 1970, 9 times out of 10, you wash those over 500,000 times. You go and you buy denim now, and you have to be very careful how you wash it because it starts to fall apart. That's why they do the denim style with all the holes and stuff in the jeans. You know, so it's just like, you know, it just really depends on your perspective and what quality means to you.
Well, I want to talk next about, you know, you've got a high interest in, you know, STEM, which of course everyone knows is science, technology, engineering, and math. And then you add the A to it for art, or sometimes people say the A is architecture, but we'll say it's art today, right? So tell me kind of your vision for that. You know, I being an engineer, right, and kind of a technologist, I understand STEM, right? And then the art people, well, they were down the hall. You know, those were different people. You know, and occasionally there were people that wandered back and forth, right? Somebody that was kind of an engineer and they also did some art or something. But how do these really integrate in your vision? How does that come together?
So like you, I started out in an engineering program and I went into microbiology, and I was not a very artistic person in my early years of education. And a lot of the kids are very motivated, you know, to stick with sciences. They're not really interested in art at all. I believe that art is something you walk yourself into. And a lot of settings, if you don't have that skill or that talent set already, it's not something you're going to explore. Someone kind of has to coax you into it. Someone kind of has to give you some type of incentive to explore it a little bit more. And with the science, technology, engineering, art, and math, and just having the background of engineering, like you said, a lot of the components, when you're talking to some of the kids that are very technical, they're like, oh, I'm not a creative. I'm not really interested in this. But when you give them facts like, you know, silk was a production, a medical production, part of putting together, you know, medical supplies, you know, many years ago, and still today, if you look at some of the high quality products, all of those products that are used in medical technology comes from plants. So making that connection that there has to be some type of, everything isn't inanimate, everything isn't generated from a non-life form. Life forms are very, you know, important in art, which is why they have still life, which is why a lot of scientists do botanical illustrations. And what I'll do is I'll throw in botanical illustrations for the plants. They'll kind of see how art's kind of derived from there, talk a little bit about still art, you know, still life, which that brings in the fine arts, and it creates, you know, a conversation that maybe might not have been there if you wouldn't put it into the light of, well, you know, one really goes in hand with the other. So I think that's really important because like I said, I didn't make that connection when I was younger.
So art as you know, inspiration in the creative process. You know, I know
Yeah.
in engineering, that's maybe you don't get to do it as much as you like, a lot of engineers, but engineering can be very creative, right? That can be
Right.
trying to solve a problem, trying to create something. And in a way that's, you know, painting, maybe I'm painting with technology, right? Painting a solution. But I also, another interesting theme, I don't know if you're a science fiction fan at all, but I see some science fiction shows, it's almost like there's a long continuum of primitive cultures, right, that do things in primitive ways with the land and with the plants and so forth. And then they go into this kind of industrial phase where everything is man-made, and there's the concrete and the steel and the glass and all this kind of stuff. And then after that, in some of these stories, there's kind of a return to the natural, where we use the technology. We still have our radios and our computers, but we start to do things that are more in harmony with nature, because we find that that's more efficient. That it's more efficient to use some natural materials than strictly the man-made materials, and somehow there's kind of a full cycle there somehow.
Right. One of the activities that the kids did was they made a silk cape, and the silk cape was inspired by the silkworm cocoon. And it was during a superhero theme. Like you said, it was balancing in between superheroes and science fiction. And so the kids had to design and come up with what type of superhero characteristic would this cape have, because it came from a silkworm cocoon. So they had to learn how to degoom the cocoon, what kind of fabric it could make, what was the possibilities of if you had a silk cape or a cocoon-like cape, what could it prevent from happening? And a lot of people, a lot of the kids were saying like, oh, okay, so fires, you know, if you're in a cocoon and a fire blows on you, you can make it like, you know, fireproof. They came up with all these really neat, inventive ideas, and then they designed a silk cape. And so that is something that's ongoing, and that's something I like to do in all ages like that, actually. Now with the onset of cosplay, a lot of, you know, from kids to adults, they like to create their costumes, dress up and talk about their favorite superheroes, create their comics, and do things like that. We were just on, when we did this activity, we were on a Webs to Wakanda panel for the Atlanta Sci-Fi Festival a couple of years ago. And so we were kind of talking about, well, what happened if the Black Panther met Spider-Man? You know, because one of the materials that's coming up is this spider web. They're manufacturing spider webs and silk cocoons together. And it's supposed to be this very, very durable material. So this is something that is, you know, in the process of being made. So it was really interesting to talk about and present to the kids. The kids grasped it and loved it. Yeah.
That's amazing. The one I thought of was Batman, right, who also had the cape. And there was something in one of the later movies where they suggested that the cape was a lightweight fabric that if you passed electricity through it, it became rigid, and that's how he could use it as a hang glider, right? To use it like a wing. So it's kind of the technology and the fabric together somehow. Yeah. So I can see that being really interesting to kids, because I mean, superheroes have got a whole new lease on life. I mean, you know, some of us remember superheroes from their early days, but then just in the last 10 or 20 years, it's been a huge rebirth of all the stuff. So that can be very relevant. Well,
but if I can just add
yeah, go
into
ahead. Sure.
what I loved about that whole conversation, was the creative thinking and the out of the box implementation that Camille used: science fiction, technology, engineering, and art. So that's a great illustration of how to bring all of that together. And I strongly believe that engineers and artists get along so well because they're inquisitive, they're curious, they want to know how it works so they can make it better, or combine the two forces together in a new way of thinking and design element. I mean, Einstein said, I believe, creativity or imagination is more important than knowledge, because creating and taking that knowledge base and creating something new is really the innovation of, you know, a new world, so to speak. And Camille, kudos to you. I just love listening to all that you're doing and how you're really applying all of it together. I'm just intrigued and fascinated. Barclay, do you have more to add?
Yeah, just one thing, and maybe this leads to where you're going too. You know, because we're on the same wavelength, you know, engineer and artist. See, we're kind of connected here, just like you were saying. But I can imagine people listening to this, Camille, and saying, okay, I'm in, you know, I want this. Where's the course that I take? Where's the book that I read? You know, how do I get going on this amazing range of stuff that you just said? So where can someone start?
Okay, so how I've been doing it, because I just took over Morningstar Cultural Arts and we're transitioning into Morningstar Arts Creative. We have a Facebook page called Morningstar Arts Creative. Okay. And you can go to our Facebook page, and we're in the process of launching a website. But there is also, our host for right now is the Seed to Fiber Art Room. And that's mainly for kids activities. You'll see a lot what we're doing with the kids. You can catch the live streams that we do. But I would say to get that information directly, like what programming we'll be doing, to go to our Facebook page. We have our events put up right there right now. And then what I do is, because we have, you know, we work on volunteers, and we just got funding for one of our projects from the city of Savannah, Cultural Art Department. We were part of the Weave a Dream program. That a lot of times what I will do is it will be kind of by word of mouth, because again, the materials are limited. So we'll pick a program, and like I said, right now we're working with Frank Callan's Boys and Girls Club. So you'll be able to kind of, you know, be able to participate in that way. Sorry, that was my uncle just walked by.
No problem. That's fine.
My dad just walked by. I get it.
So
that's great. You know, and also you're doing a fundraiser on your Facebook page that I think it's called not Thinkific, Thriftique. Your Thriftique fundraiser, and plus people can donate when they go to your Facebook page. And then those the donations go to all the resources to pay the artists and the teachers and materials, and to help with the students' interaction. And do you do adult classes too?
Yes, we do adult classes, and our studio partner this year is the Fiber Guild of Savannah. And they helped us do the most recent live stream demos. And usually I will partner with them and do the Taste of Fiber classes. And you can sign up through the Fiber Guild when they have them. And then I'll have individual classes that I do depending on the studio that we are working with that year. But with COVID, it's been kind of, you know, we've just been kind of like to be arranged with some of our adult classes, and we meet online, that kind of thing. Yeah.
That's good to know. So to keep up with those adult classes for fall and stuff, you'll be posting them on Facebook page. So definitely for the viewers and all of us interested in what you're doing and keeping up with it, we'll just follow you on Facebook until you announce your website. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. And we can message you for more information, because I definitely want to do your online classes as an adult. And I love following your pictures. And Hart would love to post and reshare, and we'll add some of those photos to this video for our audience to see more about the products that you produce and the kids interacting. I think it's important to show your seeds to fiber and all that you're doing in the changes you're making. So
and we do have, not to cut you off, but we do have kind of a modern version. We do digital printing. And what we do is we also take our handmade prints and we turn them into actual product. Our digital partner is called Print All Over Me. And they usually work with museum programs and small programs to produce their work so that it shows out digitally. And our most recent show, the Children's Object of Art show, which we had at the JEA in January, one of the masks actually came from the prints that we did when we put together the show. When we did the mask, when we did the background, we turned them into shadow boxes, we photo collaged, we did all of these things. And so we also have the YouTube page, which is M-Star Arts Creative. That's where you can catch all of the live streams and you can see how that product was made. So we take it in, you know, to show we're conscious how we're doing it, that we do conserve, that we're not just using any type of material or anything like that.
Can you repeat the YouTube channel again, please?
It's M-Star Arts Creative.
Excellent.
All right, terrific. Well, this has been great. So Camille, just back to you. Anything we've left out? Anything we should ask you? Anything else you'd like to mention?
No, you guys did a great interview. I hope I answered all your questions.
You did, but you have an upcoming event in 2 days. Today's April 12th and April 14th. Would you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, that's our Project Smart Studios, making art and reproduction textiles. And that's going to be this Wednesday from 4 to 6 Eastern Standard Time. And the first hour, the Frank Callan's Boys and Girls Club leads us off. And the second hour is when we have the adults and other studio guests come on and talk about some of the things that they've been doing during all of the other steps during the live streams.
Awesome. So even if our viewers miss the show coming up on the 14th, that'll kind of gives them an idea of what you'll be doing in the future. So they'll be sure to be on the lookout on your Facebook page to follow for more events coming soon this fall, correct?
Yes, yes.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing.
All right, fantastic. Well, Camille Hulbert, thank you very much for your time today and for all the contribution of all the other living creatures in your vicinity there, barking and otherwise. That's the natural environment. You know, it's just natural, right?
Hey, this is what happens.
So that's it for the Hart Studio today. And so thanks, Honor Allison Lynn, President of the Hart Initiative, for being with us. And I'm Barkley Brown, host of the Hart Studio Show, and we will see you all next time. You can see more about the Hart Initiative, I should say, at heartinit.org, so don't forget that one. All right, see you all later.
We'll be featuring Camille on the website and on our Facebook.
We'll be on the website.
Well, thanks,
fantastic.
Camille.
All right, thanks, everybody. See you later.
Have a great day.